This episode, Clark gets a little brother, Lionel propositions Lex, and Chloe doesn't get asked to prom. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Smallville Chronicles. I'm Lou Gonzalez, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Alan Muir.
Jeff Johns, you fucking animal!
Was that your Grant Morrison?
No, that was my, what's-his-face from Simpsons.
I have not watched The Simpsons in forever, so I have no... is it the Groundskeeper Willie?
I believe so.
Okay, they're both Scottish, so... That can be your Grant Morrison now.
Because Grant Morrison, I can't do it.
Actually, that was really good for that second.
For that second before it turned into Spanish, or a French accent.
Yeah, but that's because we like Grant Morrison, and Jeff Johns has basically overbusied himself to the point where he's putting out trash garbage.
And 10 years ago, he was putting out Flash. Wait, no, not Flash. Green Lantern?
Yeah, Green Lantern Rebirth. Then it was like the Sinestro Wars was that time. And then I think he jumped on Flash and Aquaman like right after that.
Yeah, and he also was working on Justice Society of America when they were doing the Kingdom Come sequel.
Ooh, I don't think I've read. Wait, what's it called? What's the Kingdom Come sequel called?
Thy Kingdom Come.
Maybe I read it. I have to go back and.
It's the one where the Superman from that Earth arrives in the DC Prime.
And definitely did not read that.
Oh, you have to read it. He shows up and
is he just grossed out by everything?
No, he shows up and it's sort of like what they did with Old Man Logan, where he's stunned by all these people he's seeing who he thought were dead.
Okay, that's definitely like something that I need to check out.
It's one of the best sequels to a comic ever.
Well, that's because it's really hard, and most of the time the sequels are god awful.
Yeah, and Magog actually shows up.
Oh, really?
But it's him, and Superman tries to stop him, but he's not the Magog from Kingdom Come. He's just this guy named Magog I don't want to spoil it.
Okay, yeah, it definitely needs to be, because right now I'm catching up on Sandman. Well, catching up, I'm picking it back up from where I left it 2 years ago and trying to get back on track. I've only reread a little bit, but I'm almost at where new stuff that I didn't read already. I just was trying to get myself back onto where it is. So I just finished the kind of what leads into when they made the Lucifer book. So I don't know if you've ever read Sandman.
I haven't, or I think I might have. I may have read
one of them.
Well, one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of books, and there's a lot of filler stuff with other parts of that world. But it's the one I just finished, where Lucifer gave him the keys to hell, and he's now trying to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, what I did was I read issue 1 before I had some Sandman comics before Hurricane Sandy. Lost those, and when Mike Carey started the second volume I'm not sure if it was Mike Carey. When the second volume of Lucifer started, I picked that up.
Okay, well then you'll probably be, if you like that, since Netflix picked up the show Lucifer, they've already said that they're going to make it much darker because it's not on Fox anymore, it's on Netflix. And they're also increasing the budget. I liked the show that was on Fox. I get why people don't. I'm a fan of procedural stuff. So it was very much like a Castle or a Monk, except that the not cop in the combo.
God, I would have loved to see Tony Shalhoub play Lucifer.
They did. There was a couple of really good cameos, because the one guy from Psych, the really tall guy, I can't remember his name. It's Timothy Odelson.
I know who you're talking about. He was on Jericho. He was on Supernatural.
Yeah, the really tall guy. He played a guy that was kind of God for an episode.
Yeah, I remember.
Because he had a stroke right after it. He's okay now, but it was a big deal because he almost did not make it. But he literally filmed that and then went home, and a couple days later had a stroke. That's why he's not, when they did the Psych movie this past year, he has like a very, very tiny cameo in it because he was still I guess he's still rehabbing.
Oh my god.
Yeah. We're going to get to that stuff in this show eventually, where it gets like, oh, this actor, sad ending. But, well, I guess there's already one in the show, which if you haven't seen, I will send you after this. Rosenbaum was on somebody's, Theo Vaughn, who's a comedian's podcast, and it was the first time he talked about the whole incident, or stuff involving the actress that plays Chloe.
Oh, no, I saw that.
Okay. Well, I guess we can get into this show. We're probably, like, talking about other stuff because this episode's so good, there's really not a lot to, like, critique. This episode is just, like, all heart and awesomeness and a triple homicide. Well, I guess there's there's a homicide and then a double homicide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not, I was like, when the second time, I was like, oh, there's three murders in this episode. That's pretty dark. All in front of a child.
Yeah, this episode, it's sort of similar to how they get, blanking on the dog's name. Not Crypto, but...
Oh, yeah. That's like a while from now, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a similar type of thing where
Martha hits something with a car.
No. The dog escapes, and Clark finds it, brings it home. This is during the time when Lois was
on the show. Oh, that's like real late. That's like what, like season 8?
No, I think it was either between seasons 4 or 5.
Wait, Lois shows up that early? Well, I guess she was in the high school, right?
She showed up right after the end of season 3, where the safe house Chloe goes into blows up, and then she miraculously survives because they got her to an underground bunker.
I have like no memories of this whatsoever.
It's when Lionel goes to prison.
Yeah, this is like one of the reasons why I'm glad that I'm rewatching the show, because I feel like I remember the really bad stuff as in like quality, and then a couple of episodes through being like mind blowing. Like I can tell you almost the entire Booster Gold and Blue Beetle episode because it was the worst costumes on Earth.
Yeah, the thing is, or the funny thing, Lionel's they show what happens to each person as they're shaving Lionel's head, as like a gospel type song plays.
Oh, and him like kind of cleaning the deck, so it's very like Goodfellas or Godfather 2.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely very Godfather 2.
Yeah, I think that's when...
Or the end of Godfather.
It's Chloe, her father, and other people go into a safe house because she's going to testify. Lex, I think, something happened. He gets poisoned.
But of course he's fine because he's a metahuman.
Well, I think this was when he got married to that woman and he was stuck on the island.
Oh, okay. I kind of remember that. Because that's all like a setup, right? To get something from him?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like vaguely remember that.
The reason I liked it is because following that, there was in season 4 we get Lois, we get Bart Allen.
Oh, that's when they start dipping into the ethos.
That's when DC or Warner Brothers was letting them use, well, not obviously Lois is key to Superman. They're letting them use sort of comic, like either characters who were big at the time, because Bart was Kid Flash at that point in the comics. Then a year or two later, Green Arrow Justin Harley shows up as Green Arrow. Season 5 is when Cyborg showed up.
Yeah, that's when they were like kind of starting to let them actually like expand the show.
And they form a proto-just...
Yeah. But we are going on almost 13 minutes without even naming the title of this episode.
Well, it's something that Martha has a thing for. It's strays.
Yes. So yeah, this episode is Stray. It is a very good episode. It's a very dark episode. I guess I'll like roll off this first kind of hunk of plot real quick. So basically you see this little kid at a pawnbroker shop. He's trying to trade him this thing that's gold. The guy says,
I believe it's an angel.
Yes. And the guy says, oh, it's only worth $50. Who told you it was gold? My mom. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, well, you could just tell her. He's like, I can't because she's dead. So he decides to give him a little extra money, and he opens his safe. And we see the kid kind of standing there, kind of thinking hard. He then leaves, and he goes in the car, and there's what looks like to be his mom and dad. or at least 2 adults, in the car. They want the thing, and then he's like, I don't want to help you anymore. The dad figure rips the comic book he's reading, which is Warrior Angel.
Yeah.
Like, out of his...
he grabs it, ruining any potential resale value. Because, the entire time I was watching this, I was like, where are the bags and boards? You're ruining the comic.
Well, he's like a 12-year-old kid. Because I think at some point, don't we actually see, like, Lex's number 1 or whatever down the road?
Yeah, and ironically in the episode with, I'm blanking on her name, but she was a Hollywood star at the time. It was the episode where the Hollywood star is filming a movie
in Smallville. Oh, it's that like thing, and then Clark gets inadvertently becomes like the star, or like in the movie.
No, it's our production assistant sees Clark's powers, and he does something that Misfits did, or they did it much later. He has, I think, either Lana or Lois and the Hollywood starlet, and he has to choose. Yes, he can only save one, but he ends up saving both.
Oh, it's like a Batman Forever type thing.
Yeah, and then Lex, at the end of the episode, Lex brings all his Warrior Angel comics and tries to get the production assistant to tell him what happened and about Clark. He refuses and keeps Clark's secret.
Okay. Which
this is when Clark and Lex are no longer friends anymore. Right. Which we get warned, or we get a nod to that in this episode.
Yes. So after the dad kind of attacks the kid, he gives up the combination. So we don't know what his abilities are. There's no like special effects to it. It just kind of happens, which I did like. In this, it's much more subtle. He doesn't put his hand to his temple or anything goofy. But we see the 2 adults put on like clear masks that obscure their faces in a weird way.
Okay, I have to say something. Is it me or the father? His mask looked a lot like his actual face.
Yeah, no, it's like a clear mask that kind of distorts your face. Like it's almost like it like squishes your face. Like it's a clear mask. Like that's his face underneath. I thought that too, but it's like it's kind of like if you were to wear like a stocking over your head, like you could see through the stocking, but it like just distorts it enough where like a camera wouldn't be able to pick up like specific features.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's like clear. That's what I'm saying. It's like a clear mask. They used it in a lot of movies and stuff at that time, where it kind of just like pushes your face into a specific mold, so like squished his nose down and stuff. But they go into the place. The kid gets out of the car to look and see what's going on. And as he gets to the window, the old guy that worked at the pawn shop is like, stop.
He's pleading with them, and he gets shot.
He gets shotgun to the chest. The kid runs away. The wife is actually, the woman is freaked out by it as well. Like, why did you have to do that? And then he says it was him or us.
And the kid gets noticed running away, and there's a chase that goes on, running through the forest. Then he gets hit by a car, like pretty bad, to the point where that the windshield has
a crack in it.
Yeah. And who steps out but none other than Martha.
Yep. And she drives away just as the 2 parents are coming out of the woods.
And the kid says, I lost my shoe.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, but it is in the road, the shoe, because I think that's what the parents, like, the dad picks up.
Yeah.
So from here, we cut to the hospital. The doctor is telling the Kents about the situation, and he only has minor injuries. And that the kid, Ryan, I think this is when we learn his name.
No. He says he knows his name, but nothing else.
Yes, but we learn all this from the doctor. Is like what I'm saying. Like the doctor is telling the Kents, the only thing that he remembers is his name, which is Ryan. He doesn't know anything else. And then she also informs them that he only has a bunch of scrapes and bruises, and that some of them are not from the accident. So he might not be remembering because he doesn't want to remember.
Yeah.
And that child services won't be there to pick him up till tomorrow. So the only place for him to stay is in the sheriff's juvenile cell. And that's when Clark suggests for them to...
He says, why can't he stay with us?
Yeah.
And then the doctor says that's nice of you and that shouldn't be a problem.
I did want to point out, I don't know if you got this, but Ryan is looking at everybody as they're talking, and then when you see Clark and him interact, he's almost like stunned. And I think this is what he alludes to later on, that Clark's the only person who he's never been able to read.
Well, it happens again when
the breakfast scene
where he tries to read Clark.
Yeah, which is exactly this is the next scene. So like he makes everybody their favorite breakfast except for Clark because he doesn't know what it is. And then Jonathan asks Ryan why he was out on the highway, and he gets defensive and says he doesn't remember, and then like kind of runs away.
Well, he says, I think, doesn't he also say that like I'm not lying, I really don't remember.
Yeah, he gets like super defensive about the whole situation, and Jonathan's like not really being aggressive at all, but he just kind of like freaks out and then kind of like
he just runs out.
Yeah, and Clark goes and finds him. He's reading the comic book Warrior Angel, and Ryan is afraid that he's gonna be sent away because it's obvious that he's lying. And Clark says no, they wouldn't do that. And then he's like, well, would they send me away if they found out I did bad things before they found me? And then Clark basically, is this where he asks him about the comic book? Like, why, like, he was reading that character, and then he explains that, like, he just wants to help people, even though he's not born. It's basically a Superman story, just with a different character's name.
Yeah.
And then they play basketball for a second while Jonathan and Martha look on.
Yeah, and he does, I don't know if you've ever watched the show The Goldbergs.
I've seen a couple episodes.
There's an episode where Murray goes back to his old high school, where someone beat his record of shots, and he does instead of the regular way to shoot a basketball, he does it
grandma style.
Yeah,
they do that. They've done that bit on a lot of shows over the decades. It was like a very big trope. I'm trying to remember because I remember they goof on that in like a King of the Hill episode. I think they did that in Married with Children. Like anytime there's like a character that a lot of their thing is wrapped up in like one athletic thing that they have in their life, that tends to be an episode eventually. Which the Goldbergs is a good show, but I believe the next season is the last season.
Oh man,
they're doing a spin-off with the wrestling coach character. They did a pilot kind of episode not too long ago. It was really funny.
It's going to take place in the 90s.
Yeah, it's with Brian Callen, who's a comedian. He's the wrestling coach, and then Tim Meadows.
Tim Meadows is national treasure.
All right, let's get back here. And so we're at the hospital again. The dad is now looking like a private detective looking for the boy, but when it's not there, we see the woman again, and the two of them leave. Next, we see Lex getting a visit from Lionel, who compliments everything he has done, and basically gives Lex one of the few compliments he's ever given him in his life, and tells him he wants Lex to return to Metropolis as a special advisor to himself. And Lex tells him he wants him to think about it.
And he also gives a history lesson about Alexander the Great.
Yes, yeah, and I can't remember his father was Philip, and I can't remember what the Philip though, whatever. Yes, he gives them a whole thing, and then Lex is like, well, he told him that after he, tried to kill him in like a failed coup or something like that, because Philip did try to kill Alexander, and I believe Alexander eventually ended up killing Philip.
Yeah, but the way he says it is, he doesn't say it's Alexander the Great, but he just says the boy, something along the lines of, this boy ended up becoming Alexander the Great.
Yep. All right. So next thing, Clark takes Ryan to the Torch where he meets Chloe, and she compares his story to Caspar Hauser, which I guess is a real thing that I did not know about. And this is when we kind of get, I think, our first real taste that he's psychic, because Chloe gets to where she's going to say the end of the story and then stops herself when she realizes she's talking to like a 12-year-old. And then says, like, oh, and he lived happily ever after. And Ryan's like, you could have just said he was murdered. And they kind of walks off. It's like, okay, super emo child. And she's super confused. And they kind of they take a picture of him so they can compare it to, like, missing people.
Yeah, first he gets again, super defensive about
how he knew.
Well, he thinks he's going to be going on the pictures for the wall of weird.
Oh, yes.
I mean, hey, if Lana's on it.
That is true.
There shouldn't be a problem.
So right after this, Ryan, outside of the room, tells Clark that Chloe likes him. He's like, okay, well, they're not out of the room. They're just, like, off to the side. And he's like, oh, okay, of course, I like her too. We're friends. And he's like, no, she likes you. She wants you to ask her out to the prom. And she even brought, she dressed for it already. It's pink.
Yeah, and then we get a shot of Chloe look on computer, not paying attention or not looking at them.
Yep. And from here we go to the Talon where Clark takes Ryan. They meet Lana and Lex. Lex informs Ryan that he has the entire Warrior Angel collection, even like a first printing of the first issue, and Ryan's unimpressed and also like very rude to him.
He's a bit of a dick.
He's a total dick, so he's like just like unresponsive.
Not just that, but when Lex starts to say he has a, I have a, and Ryan immediately cuts him off and says that he's like, you have the first issue framed on your wall or something.
I loved his like explanation for knowing that. It was funny. Just telling him you're rich. That's what rich people do. They collect things.
Yeah. It's sort of. I don't want to say Lex meaning his match.
Well, it's that Lex can't hide behind his like wit and intelligence.
Yeah.
So right after this, Lex kind of like takes his leave because he basically gets shunned by a 12-year-old, and Clark is like, "Oh, like you were being that was really rude." And then Ryan tells Clark about the job offer Lex got. Clark tells him to stop.
He's leaving, or he's leaving, or he's going back to Metropolis.
Yeah, his dad offered him a job. Yeah, he's going back to Metropolis. His dad offered him a job, and Clark's like, "That would never happen. Stop making up stories." And stop making up stories about people, and then leaves for a second. This is when you see Ryan. He's just sitting there, and then you see his head kind of pick up, and the camera kind of like shows behind him is the dad. And you see Ryan then turn, because he had already realized, because I guess he read his thoughts, is what we're led to believe.
Yeah, he notices that something is not right, and he turns around and immediately runs out. And Lana takes note of this and how he's followed out. Clark comes back, asks where Ryan is. Lana tells him he ran outside. And something you forgot to mention was they focused on a certain panel in the Warrior Angel comic.
Oh yes,
where it's "You're safe now."
Yeah, and he's looking through like a hole with like light coming out from behind him, which is exactly what happens in the next 2 minutes because Ryan goes and
he hides in a dumpster.
Yep. The stepdad comes out looking, can't find him, and we have the garbage truck coming. Clark comes outside, yelling. The stepdad or the dad, well, his stepdad like runs away. The dumpster gets dumped into the garbage truck and starts compressing. Clark the kid finally starts screaming at this point. So then Clark X-ray visions and then rips the hydraulic hoses out. And
it's more detective vision because honestly, that's what it looks like.
Oh yeah, it's like sort of X-ray vision because he sees the skeleton, but there's also the outlines of like all the bags. I don't know. It's goofy. And like my first thought of this is like, where the hell is this garbage truck driver?
Yeah, he should have noticed. He would have noticed
a child screaming in the back of the truck,
and then a gigantic hole,
or like that, or that some sort of lights would be blinking when the hydraulic hoses get ripped off.
Yeah,
and he could have just stopped there. Like he didn't need to rip the hole open, except to like make it connect to that comic book panel. Like, because they could have just like, he could have just like ripped them out, or like gotten the truck driver to stop. But it's a TV show. It's one of those, like, logic inconsistencies that always bugs the crap out of me. Alright, so then, now we cut back to the loft. Clark is putting stuff away, and Lex shows up, and they basically have this, light conversation about how Lex always wanted to have a sibling, or Clark always wanted to have a sibling, and how they both never had one, and Lex reveals that no, he did have one. He had a brother whose name was Julian. Everything was awesome. It was the first time he ever saw his dad smile, and he was truly happy. And then one night they woke up. His mom went to go check on him when they were going to go do his baptism or christening, something like that. And Julian was dead in his crib. And that from that day on, his mother was never the same. His dad grew more distant and colder, and all semblance that Lex had for a real family went away. And he also ends it with kind of saying that, it's the past, and anyway, like, we would have ended up hating each other. My father would have made a point of that. And then he tells him about the job offer, and Clark says, "Did you tell Ryan?" And he says, "No, I haven't told anyone but you." And
I know that our listeners are probably tired of me constantly talking about 10, but we do get a sort of a taste of what it would be like if Lex having a sibling
Yes, and this also ties into a plot that happens in season 2 or 3, where there's the Julian that appears.
Yeah, and then
I think it's season 2.
yeah, because it's got the guy from Vampire Diaries.
Yeah. That's what, and again, this is like one of the memorable scenes is like him signing a paper at the pool table is like one of like the things I remember from like that episode.
Honestly, that is one of my least favorite episodes of the entire series.
Oh yeah, it's complete
Because
hogwash.
the dude's acting, not good at all.
No, not at all. Alright, so from here, Jonathan takes Ryan to the Talon, so he goes back there as a reward for helping him. He gets a coffee, tells Lana to give Ryan whatever he wants. He's going to call Martha on the phone from the building because this is 2001 and nobody has cell phones yet.
2002.
2002. And while he does that, Ryan observes one of the waitresses and says that she's not a good person.
And she should be fired.
Yes. And I guess Lana later on ends up finding out that she has been stealing money from the register.
Yeah, Ryan doesn't. Lana first is
skeptical.
No, she's like mean to him about it. She's like, "That's a terrible thing to say. Why would you say that?" And he just says, "Because she's a bad person."
Yep. And
Ryan does not give two fucks about what's going on.
He also doesn't really lie, which comes into play later. The problem is he gets this knowledge and then he's like too forward with it with people. And that's what makes him come off as a dick when really he's just being honest. So like him being shitty to Lex is because he kind of looked into his head and realized Lex is like dark and stuff, as he says.
Yeah, he has a lot of darkness that he hides from the world.
Yep. So Jonathan and Ryan go back to the house, and then as they pan out, the stepdad is outside reading a newspaper about Lex and saying that like we'll get him when we're ready.
And basically Lex is their next
target.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Chloe and Clark investigating the area where Martha hit Ryan. Clark brings up the claim about the prom thing and the pink dress, which Chloe embarrassedly confirms that is all true, but that she hasn't bought the dress yet. She just
looked at it.
But it makes like the super awkward relationship stuff that, especially this early in the series, happens all the time. They find Ryan's backpack, and Clark magically rips open a piece and finds a picture of Ryan with his mother, which I love. Chloe's like, "Why did you look there?" He's like, "That's where I would hide stuff." It's like, yeah, if you were like a CIA operative.
Yeah. And he later confronts Ryan about it.
Yes.
And he says he wanted to start again with the Kents.
Yes, there's like one scene in here that's we're missing. It first jumps to Ryan with Martha and him kind of probing her and weirding her out, and she sends him outside to play. But this is also, in this conversation, is where he learns Clark's origin, and it cuts to Ryan looking at the spaceship and Clark being pissed at it, and Ryan telling him that he's not going to tell anybody, and then he confesses his ability to read people's thoughts, and he begins to cry when he's explaining like the picture and everything, that his mother did die, and his stepfather and his girlfriend have been using him to like steal from people, and we already know based on the doctor in the beginning of the episode also abuse him. Clark kind of just gives him a hug while he cries.
Yeah, he does. He plays Big Brother part for most of this episode, or for the entire episode.
Yep. And then basically right after this, we see the stepmom or stepdad's girlfriend, I think her name is Deborah, shows up at the house posing as child services. She tells Ryan that if he doesn't go along with her, they're going to kill the Kents. So they leave before saying goodbye to Clark. Lex arrives to give Clark a gift, which is a fencing sword called a foil. This was kind of like, I don't understand why this is even in this episode, but it was, I guess, just a way to set up that Lex goes to the Kents. And so then he decides to leave. Clark says, "For the record, I hope that you don't leave." And Lex leaves to go have dinner with his dad, and we see the limo driver close the door, and it's Ryan's stepdad. The next scene is, so Lex in the limo is driving, the limo stops, and Lex is confused, and then the stepdad climbs in the back with Ryan, and holds Lex at gunpoint while asking him questions, and Ryan reading his mind, answering everything. The stepmom is driving, and then they end up throwing Lex out of the moving limo. And then
Clark comes by, right?
No, Chloe goes to visit Clark and shows him the picture of Ryan's stepdad's rap sheet and Clark realizes that was the limo driver and basically ditches Chloe there. And Chloe makes some quip about how if Lex is leaving, she's still there. And then like a joke about the cop where she got the info from. Maybe she'll ask him to prom. Yeah, I know. This is where we get where Clark runs and finds Lex. And then Lex says to go get help because they have Ryan. Which they also showed that when Lex was in the limo, he definitely realizes that Ryan has abilities. Because there's no way for Lex to know, or there's no way for Ryan to know the things. Because I think he says, like, oh, I don't have it, my dad has it, and Ryan's like, he's lying. And so we do cut to the Gibsons, who are the step-parents. They stop at a bowling alley. They get out of the car. The stepdad tells the girlfriend to torch it.
Do you notice what...
Oh, the bowling alley's name? No, I thought I should remember it, but I did not remember what it was called.
Lois Lanes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because probably like another thing where they thought that they would never get to it, so...
Yeah, because they wanted to stop at 5 seasons.
Yep. So they get out of the car. James, or the stepdad, asks for the password, and he threatens Ryan. He tells him it's Julian, it does not work. And then he says he's going to kill him, and then Deborah wants to kill Ryan. But then Ryan basically says that that the stepdad's going to kill her after he gets the money anyway. This is where she goes, he's always weirded me out, but the one thing he's ever done is lied. And she pulls her gun on him, and he's just like... I was just going to say, like, the stepdad kind of just tells her, like, oh, he's just trying to split us up, and then he turns around to go, like, he closes the briefcase laptop thing. And that's when he turns around and then just shotguns her to the chest.
Yeah. Thank God they don't live in the world like The Walking Dead, or else he's just the governor.
Yeah. They don't show it like kind of on screen. He just kind of turns around and you hear the gunshot, and then you hear like the body fall, and then we see her legs like twice, I believe, like her kind of dead on the ground.
Yeah. Because
I think when he's like turned around, Ryan like makes a run for it, and then so he's in the bowling alley, and then there's like a guy coming out, and he tells the guy to call the cops, and then the guy like kind of looks up, and the stepdad just shotguns him in the chest too.
What is with this guy?
Man. I know that guy. We actually gets shot. Like it hits him in the chest. We just don't see any blood. He just like gets hit and then goes down.
Yeah, that happens for most of the episode, or the people who do get shot.
Yeah, they just go down. There's no blood anywhere. There's blood like in post scenes, like after someone's dead. I think there's blood, or if they get hurt, but they can't. Not when they're dying, because I think that's how you get around like TVMA. This was like whatever TV 13 or PG 13. But basically they go in there. Ryan's hiding, stepdad's being all shitty. Clark shows up, he sees the 2 dead bodies, which we see on camera, including the stepmom. He goes in, he uses his x-ray vision to see that the stepdad has the shotgun pointed at Ryan. Their positioning is very weird because Ryan's like in the machinery, so he's actually closer to Clark. He's in between Clark and the stepdad. That's how you saw it too, right? Because like the stepdad's like kind of, his back would be point like towards the back wall behind the bowling alley.
Yeah. Oh, just a fun fact about the actor who played this character, or the actor. His name is Jim Shield. You'll know it. He comes back He comes back later on in 2010, and he plays possibly one of the most golden age comic character ever. Sylvester Pemberton, aka the Star Spangled Kid.
Oh wow, was that in the
Absolute Justice episode?
Okay, I was gonna say, like, I remember that, and that's such like a weird character because it's not.
He has a short amount of screen time, but it's his death sort of that sets thing in motion.
Because he's not like a Captain America thing. Isn't he like what's his name? Starman kind of. Is he like a predecessor to Starman or Stargirl?
No, Starman was actually a member, like, in the series, and Starman's father was actually a member of the JSA.
Okay, maybe I'm mixing up Starman and the Star Spangled Kid.
But I think in the Smallville verse, or in the comics, Star and Stripe, it's JSA stuff is very complicated.
Oh yeah, of course, because they've like retconned it 55,000 times.
Yeah.
All right.
We could do a whole podcast on
the JSA. Yeah.
Like even
each
just
version.
Yeah.
All right, we have very little bit left in here, so Clark defeats our bad guy by chucking a bowling ball through a brick wall and hitting him in the chest, causing him to not die.
Yeah, that would cave in. That would crush his ribs.
Yeah, he'd be done. Or the ball would have exploded upon impact with the brick wall. I guess depending on the weight of the ball, but yeah, no matter if you had to throw it hard enough to go through brick, then yeah, it would kill him. Which he could have equally we've seen him, he could have just ran around and then just like bonked him in the head. Like the last episode, he just Luke Caged him and tapped him right on the forehead.
Yeah.
But no, it's a chance for them to show off like special effects, which didn't look terrible. So after this, Clark takes Ryan to the town to say goodbye to Lana, who gives him a goodbye kiss and tells him that he was right about the waitress. Lex informs his father that he is not going back to Metropolis because his father wants him there to keep an eye on him, and he wants to do his own thing. And like what those ancient fathers and son relationship, the fathers were really afraid of was their son returning with their own army. So this goes again to like the relationship between Lex and Lionel is more competitive than it is like a father-son relationship.
Yeah.
And we finish up by cutting back to the farm. Chloe found out that Ryan has an aunt from Edge City. Edge City to come and get him. He tells Jonathan and Martha that he's not going to reveal the secret to anybody.
Because he knows it's like hiding
who he is from the world.
Yeah. While Superman by fighting Swelling.
Yes. He gives Clark his comic book collection and warns him about Lex and says he doesn't need the books because he has his own.
He has Clark.
Yes. And he also says, like, she's a good person. She's just as worried, or she's just as nervous as I am. Everything's going to be okay. Clark waves goodbye, and that is the end of the episode.
Yeah. But don't forget War Machine. We get some wind on the back of Clark's hair.
Oh yes.
Which weirdly doesn't go to Martha or John. Also, what is up with those elbow patches on the flannel shirt?
It's a trend of the time that went out of fashion, and then it came back into fashion a bit a couple years ago, and then I think it's gone again.
Thank God.
It's just a look. Yeah, they do that with a bunch of stuff. Like you can see, like kind of like a sport coat will have them. It's a thing that they do every once in a while.
So I have some trivia. The character of Ryan James, played by Ryan Kelly, he was 15 during the filming of the episode, which is the age that Clark, Lana, Chloe, and Pete are supposed to, but aren't. This song, obviously, Superman by Fighting, is about the inner lament and burdens of Superman, the character perspective. The Warrior Angel #1 is pretty much the same as Action Comics #1. In the cafe, Lex mentions he likes Warrior Angel because he's bold, and this is something I didn't have to look up because I did this. When Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, when they were working on the character, he was a bald madman and the book was called The Reign of Superman. And this is a religious thing.
Mm-hmm.
In Christianity, and according to the Christian angelic hierarchy, warrior angels are created to be loyal to God. Also called powers, they are the bearers of conscience and the keepers of history. So.
Yeah. I had like only one fun trivia thing about this episode. So was there any other things you had?
That's it.
Funny that this is actually the first episode of the show in the series where the word kryptonite is uttered.
Yeah.
Because it's in the song.
Yeah.
Which is really dumb. But we do see a return of Ryan later on, and with his return...
In the next season, and I didn't like...
Yes, but what
go ahead.
I was going to say, what it does do is it kind of... Although they never address where his powers come from, I guess we're supposed to assume in this episode that they're from the meteors, but what they actually end up saying that they're not. He's the first meta not created out of meteors.
No, he's not. He's not actually a meta in general.
Well, he can read people's minds, so that kind of makes him. He has powers. He's the first powered individual.
He's no, or I don't mean a fanboy, but in the episode Ryan 2, they determined that the cause of it was a tumor, and it's killing him. Let's just say that episode has a sad ending.
Yep. All right. So, is there anything specific you wanted to talk about in this episode, or did you have MVP, LVP?
I had 3 MVPs and 3 LVPs.
Wow. Like 2/3 of the cast in this episode.
Well, sort of. My 3 MVPs are Clark, Lex, and Lionel. Lionel for time-free period in the episode.
Yeah, they're all absolutely amazing in this episode. Anytime you get Lex and Lionel in a scene together, it's just amazing to watch. They just play so well off of each other.
The next, and my 3 least valuable players, Ryan's stepdad, the girlfriend, and Ryan himself.
Oh, really? You didn't like the kid?
I liked him at the end of the episode because that's when he changes his demeanor.
Oh, you were annoyed by his dickish attitude from the beginning?
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I cried during this episode. I used to love this. I loved this episode. What the hell happened?
You didn't like his rude attitude towards Lex?
No, it's not that. I'm not saying he's a bad actor, but he is much better in his second episode.
The only thing that bugged me, and it was more of a writing thing, was like I just didn't understand why the character, even though after he sees that the stepdad is gone, doesn't yell then when he's in the dumpster. He waits not only until after it's dumped, but until it starts to compact. And I was like, why aren't you yelling sooner? But the stepdad and the stepmom were terrible, and whoever did the makeup on the stepmom did her no favors. They just like dressed her up like the worst sort of, almost like stripper-like. She was wearing like leopard print and had on all the makeup.
Yeah, she got shot with.
And then she got
Homer Simpson's makeup shotgun.
Yes, and then she got shot with a real shotgun. Which again, this is like, it was so jarring to like sit there at the end and be like, wow, they legitimately showed 3 people get murdered in this episode. Like straight up.
Technically 4.
Oh, what, the stepdad at the end that Clark kills with the bowling ball?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, they straight up show 3 people getting gunned down. Which is like much more, like, because most of the other episodes, when someone dies, it's either their own fault or it's like by accident, or if somebody does kill them, it is very off screen, but we see all 3 of them kind of almost, one of them we see on screen. The other one, we see the dead body twice. So it was this was a darker episode, and child abuse. Alright, we cool to do the preview for the next episode?
Yep.
Alright, so our next episode is Reaper. We can check out the trailer right now.
Do you know the difference between living and dying?
On the WB's new Tuesday, an all-new
This is an interesting
Smallville,
episode.
risen from the dead.
Kind of
Body
reminds
disappears
me
from Metropolis
of,
morgue.
It lives to kill.
What are you doing here?
kind of thing.
How can he turn
It's like
people to
almost
ash?
like
An
reverse.
unstoppable presence that preys on your worst
Kind of
fear.
similar
Trust
to like
no one.
Early on in Heroes with the cheerleader.
Clark,
But like they pull the thing
An
out of
all-new
instead of something getting put
Smallville.
in, like then they pull like the stake out of her or whatever. She comes back to life, and definitely with the people turning to ashes thing, very Infinity War.
Yeah.
But
But at least we're getting Eric Johnson's is getting another chance to show up his acting chops.
yeah, we do see Whitney's return because this is an episode that's very much about euthanasia, which is again another kind of dark subject matter that they're taking on. But it's definitely interesting, and I guess this will be a second really dark episode in a row for this show. But we are closing in. The next episode will be episode 17.
And Lionel's in this episode.
Yes, he is. All right, so I guess plug time.
You can follow me on Twitter at the Alan Mirror. I've been sharing the latest, or by the time this comes out, I'm sharing the most recent as of recording After Dark Fuck Movie Pass, in which every single place I plugged it. I plugged it on my Twitter, plugged it in a podcast group. I just said F Batman, more like F Movie Pass. All that and more on this week's After Dark that I am totally not on.
Yeah, it was a long episode, but it was good. Arlen got to go off on Movie Pass for a while.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to it. You can follow me on Instagram at ComicsBoy. I was in a negative space. Let's just call what that was, with my my comments towards Doomsday Clock issue 6. I will say that, with my saying Doomsday Clock sucks. Did Tom Taylor write this? Yeah, and just people. Doomsday Clock is just going to lead to another reboot of DC.
Yeah, probably in some form or fashion.
I have a feeling this is going to turn out the way Secret Wars turned out with Marvel, because Doomsday Clock is halfway done, and there's going to be, I think, by the time Heroes in Crisis issue 1 comes out, I think it's coming out on the same day as Doomsday Clock 7, so I think they might be ending on time, hopefully.
Probably, technically it'd be, there's 6 more issues, so it'd be 6 months, but they're doing it every 2 months, so it's at least another year.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll be done by 2020.
I wonder what's going to end first, this show or Doomsday Clock.
Well, that's what, in that episode of After Dark, I said, I bet you that Doomsday Clock is still going by the time that the Watchmen TV show on HBO starts to air. Alright, did you have anything else?
No.
Alright, I'm also, like we've been talking about, on the...
Oh wait, almost forgot. Don't forget to join the Facebook group, Phantom Zone. Just type that in on Facebook.
Yep. And I'm Lou A. Gonzalez on Instagram and Twitter. I'm in the Phantom Zone group. I am on the Phantom Zone podcast all the time. We will be getting, by the time this drops, we'll be not too far away from the new CW seasons, as well as Iron Fist Season 2. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, wherever you find your podcasts.
Anchor also, right?
Yes, that is where we're going out of Anchor. But Anchor feeds into everything else as well. Like, you can listen on Anchor, or you can listen on iTunes, or wherever. I guess that is it. We will catch you on the next episode of the Smallville Chronicles. I'm Lou Gonzalez.
I'm Alan Muir, and this podcast stands for Truth, Justice, and the American Way.